going to start by showing you all a book that I have not written, but somebody else has written. And I think I was delighted to find it. It's Gladys McGarry, The Well-Lived Life. And you know what? She's 102 years old, a doctor's 6 secrets for health and happiness at every age. And when she wrote this at 102, she was still practicing medicine. And I find it inspiring beyond belief what she says, and it's a book that I certainly recommend, because the longer I live, the more I see aging as the best part of life. My life right now has been beyond anything I could have conceptualized, and I am going to be, this summer, I'll be 90. So it's just, and keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay. Moving forward, I also welcome interruptions at any time. I don't have all the wisdom here for you. And as soon as there's something that I say that you don't agree with, or maybe that you strongly agree with, if you want to dispute it, comment on it, whatever, please feel free to raise your hand to interrupt me and to make this a conversation rather than any kind of lecture on my part. Okay? I'll start by saying that life expectancy in rich countries like Canada is growing by 15 minutes every hour. So you know what? You've just added 15 minutes to your life if you were here at noon and had lunch together with us. Like, we have no idea what miracles medicine is doing for us, but we are all going to live longer than we expected. And actual decline, yes, we all have our problems. I've got a hearing problem. Other people have problems with mobility or with other things.
Welcome to the club.
But, of course, that's part of it. But it's occurring later and later. And there are more and more ways in which, we learn to cope. As I say, I now wear hearing aids. So what? My hair is gray. So what? I have stopped using all those negative terms that are out there: senile, over the hill, disposable. Often when I talk to seniors groups.
Talking about you?
It's okay. Often when I talk to seniors groups, they say, I feel so invisible. And I say, but don't be invisible. Get out there. Share who you are. And thank you to all that I met today even. I'm thinking of so many of you as individuals who have already made an impact on me and who I will remember with great fondness. So don't hide your light under a bushel. Be who you are. Be glad to be who you are. That's another thing that I have learned late in life. When I went to school, and probably when many of you went to school, the message out there was, don't think you're so smart. Don't get too big for your britches. Who do you think you are to speak out or to have an opinion or anything? You're nothing. You're a stupid little twerp. Even when I wanted to go to university, and my parents were very, very poor, I'm a child of immigrants, I went to the principal and said, what would I have to do to win a scholarship to go to, I was in Ontario, McMaster University, and he laughed in my face. And he said, I wouldn't think of trying to win a scholarship if I were as stupid as you. But I'm legally bound to tell you what you need to do. And, so I grew up thinking I was nothing. And I think many of you grew up with similar messages. We were told not to get a swollen head, not to be egotistical. And only late in life have I learned the beauty of who each of you are, who each of you is, and the value of human diversity, that we all have different gifts. I've just been talking to Lana, who, in her spare time says she does artwork. Well, I could no more draw something than fly. It's not part of my skills. We each have something. Some of us are athletic, some of us are artistic, some of us are musical, some of us are mathematical. One of my grandsons showed me a piece of whatever it was that he was doing recently, and I went, what? Like it was an entire page covered with symbols that meant nothing to me. So we all have different gifts, and these days with coding and AI and all these things, I'm so aware that we can't do everything, but we can do what we can. So welcome to the world of new challenges, along with new opportunities to be who we are. And only this week I went to a talk, some of you may know him, David Helliwell, who's a UBC professor of economics, but he's made his core thing, happiness. And he was talking all about the ways to be happy, 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 joyful, joyful, joyful. And I said, you know what? I'm not sure I understand that kind of happiness. I know something about an inner sense of contentment when I look at particularly my family, the people I love, the friends in my world, the beauties of nature. That I get. I'm not very good about jokes and humor. I've never understood why if somebody steps on a banana peel and falls on his ass, I should laugh. What is it? We enjoy watching other people hurt themselves? I don't get it. So there's much that I don't get. But I think we each have our concept of what is right for us as a unique individual. And that uniqueness, we each have something to give to the world. And so the other thing that I spoke to David about it, also cling to, is there's Viktor Frankl made a wonderful statement that I often say, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And, and even seeing this Rotary Club and seeing the enthusiasm that you're putting in for raising money, for giving to those who are in need in your community, you're doing something. It's not all about, gee, I'm having fun. It's something else. It's something deeper. And hang on to that. Hang on to that. Don't ever let that go from your grasp. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. So, and I think you all have a why. Okay. Back to my talk. Okay, if you can, I do encourage you to stay as physically active as you can. I know that for some of us, that is increasingly a challenge, but if you can, try to push yourself out the door every day to at least walk a little bit. A study that divided people ages 55 to 80 randomly into two groups. One group walked 3 times a week, the other didn't not. And the group that did the walking, it was their cognitive skills that they measured afterwards. So it's not just your body that you're keeping in shape, it's your mind when you get enough fresh air and a little bit of exercise. So I encourage you to do what you can. Of course, we all have our limitations. And, we can't, run the way we used to when we were 20 years old, but there's no need to do that. Okay? Change is inevitable. We all change over time. And what we need to challenge is the idea that change equals decay. I don't feel that I'm decaying day by day, year by year. I learn something. I gain something from every day that I'm alive, that I have the occasion to be with others, to absorb something from whatever source it is. So don't think of yourself as decaying. Think of yourself as learning, as growing in all kinds of ways that are positive. And you'll get more out of life, I think, if you see that as the way forward. If you told me 20 years ago that every day could bring a fresh, meaningful, and enjoyable challenge, I might have been tempted to laugh in your face. And if you had told me that after I retire, I'd still have 40 years ahead, like that's almost the same period of time that some of us put into our work world or to our time raising children. We are destined from 60. Many of us, as I say, we're every 15 minutes that we're not dead, we are getting older. And that's extending. So think of how many 15-minute periods there are in a day, let alone in a week, a month, a year. Like, it's wonderful. And if we're here, they're saying those of us who are, a certain age, we're all going to probably become centenarians and be like this woman who at 102 is still practicing medicine and still writing about, and she writes a lot about how important human connections are, which is the other part that I liked a lot about her book. She says it's not just all about the body, being a doctor, and she spends a lot of time in her book, if I certainly recommend it, talking about the ways in which she interviews patients and says, so what's really causing your distress? Why are you so downhearted? And as they get in touch with their feelings, many of their body symptoms also kind of diminish. So I think that's an important message. And the other message that I have is of course, in your wonderful example of it, all of you in this Rotary Club, is that retirement isn't about sitting back and doing nothing. I think retirement is an opportunity to develop in new ways. I didn't know I could write. I'd never written a thing other than a couple of professional articles when I was in my teaching world. And, now not a day goes by that I'm not writing, because I find so much pleasure in expressing my thoughts on so many topics. Like we were talking earlier about, do we believe in one world, one humanity, or this country against that country? And do we need 200 countries? Why? And don't the more countries we have mean the more controversies? And isn't it wonderful? Wasn't it wonderful when the EU came into existence and France and Britain and Germany and everybody stopped shooting at each other and killing each other? Like, don't we believe in one world? What are we doing to make that world happen? How are we giving birth to a new vision? And especially those of us who are older, I think we have the time and the leisure to think about these things. I look at my kids who are out there, in the work world, and they don't have the time to think about all the things that I have time to think about. They don't have time for all these issues. They've got to, do what, their jobs demand, and then they've got, they come home and they've got young children to look after, and by the time they, that's it. I have found writing and thinking about things so powerful that I have literally stopped. For example, when I went to Kyrgyzstan, I canceled my TV. I have not watched TV in a couple of years. Sorry, I missed the Olympics, but I really don't care which nation wins and whether Canada gets the hockey championship or some other country gets it. That's not part of my world anymore. Sorry about that, fellows. Sorry, but it's not anymore what concerns me. I'm delighted to see young people from all over the world who are athletes get together and do their thing. I have a granddaughter who it terrifies me. She's into diving, and she goes off these boards that are 10 meters, 10 whatever. Blah, blah, blah. It terrifies me what she's doing. Head first, flipping backwards. I can't believe when I see what she does. So it's amazing that people are doing these things. But I don't need that kind of entertainment right now. I'm finding that thinking about how can I fix the world? What can I do? How can I reconceptualize even our democracy? I've been thinking a lot about our democracy and what it means, and is it functioning the way we want it to? Quite frankly, I often feel disenfranchised. I feel like, well, if the party that I voted for isn't doing what I wanted, but I can't possibly vote for that other guy, it's usually just a guy, sorry. And in this age of technology, I kind of wonder, does my MP, who represents thousands and thousands of people, I don't know how many people he represents in my area, really represent me? Is he taking my message forward? And is the Prime Minister really listening to what he says? And does my MP need this great big office? And there's never anybody in the office except one guy on his cell phone. And is this guy on his cell phone really doing some work, or is he just watching whatever game on the cell phone?
Just wondering, when you're saying about these people not representing you and everything, and that you haven't watched TV and so on.
Yeah.
So where are you getting your news?
I daily on my computer I have the New York Times. I have the Tyee for local stuff. I have a number of sources that I will check. The London Guardian to get more news of what's happening in Europe. Plus, I have a number of sort of individual sources from all over the world who are sending me stuff. Like I don't know, and sometimes I say unsubscribe. But if something is coming at me that is of interest, then I continue to watch it. So I get my headlines pretty much daily from there. And then I can click on it if I think that it's something I need to know. If it's the latest that a certain American has done, I see no need to follow up. If it's what one of his followers has done, said, I see no reason to follow up. But yes, if there's a major event happening in the world, I do follow that.
Yes. So have you found any news or media outlets that you would say report the news objectively?
I'm afraid to answer that question anymore. I have now a couple of times seen something that I said, oh, what a great idea, and followed up and found out that it's not. Like I'm thinking a short while ago, Vancouver particularly, I don't know what the situation is here in Delta, but Vancouver has a major homelessness problem. And I saw these, they looked like a series of tents almost, but the front of them was glassed in, and they had been done for the homeless, and each tent thing had a little potty, toilet, and a small area of able to cook. And I thought, oh, what a great idea, what a great concept. Why don't we have that? Well, I followed up, and apparently it was somebody's invention that doesn't exist. They have not yet devised such a whatever it is. So I don't know what to believe anymore. And I used to have great faith in the CBC, but I've learned recently that even that sometimes goes astray. So I don't know. I think that all things we have to double check these days and not follow. And that's another of the things that's very interesting to me is the whole issue of education. And I think we need to do much, much more in our schools to get our kids to debate issues, to get kids to say, hey, wait a minute, is there another side to that? Like I'm realizing the extent to which I also was kind of brainwashed in the schools that I attended. I didn't learn about the treatment of the Indigenous, for example, until very, very late. And every time we sing our home and native land, a little part of me now cringes. And I think, if I were Indigenous, how would I feel to hear people singing that? Do we have that right? We criticize other countries for invading, but who knows what's right? Many, many years ago, I was in the Yukon and I saw a map, and it showed what Canada or North America and Russia or Asia used to be joined together, and that is how the so-called Indigenous came across from Asia and all down the coast of North America. So even the Indigenous, as we call them, weren't necessarily born here or native to. So all these questions keep coming up for me. I don't think there are any answers necessarily, but I think, again, as seniors, as elders, it's our responsibility to think about them, because otherwise we are going to just keep perpetuating things that aren't right. And we need to be aware of that. Okay, so life is so different. And here, another thing I was going to say, 20 years ago, my life was so different. My grandchildren weren't even born 20 years ago. And making me happy isn't somebody else's responsibility. It's my responsibility to give myself purpose and meaning in life. And I've said that good genes are important, but the doctors are now saying that 25% of aging well is up to each of us. So it's not what life does to us, but rather how we react to the things that come our way. And that will be different for each one of us. So, mental fitness has always been important to me. 20 years ago, I'd never written a book, and I hadn't even learned to type. My daughter has just walked in. She laughs at me and through my grandchildren, because I never learned to touch type. And they can't believe that I have written 2 books with 2 fingers. And of course, the reason I didn't learn to touch type was that I did not want to be a secretary and spend the rest of my life taking down the wise words of some man.
I'm not that wise.
But that was our role back then. That was what we were all taught and expected to do. And I'm so pleased to see so many faces nodding in agreement. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to say Ontario schools in my day were composite, meaning they were divided into academic, commercial, or industrial. Yep. Okay. Okay. I've also been saying that instead of wanting every new thing that comes my way and hoping that that will make me happy, I see aging as a time to reject much of the materialism that is out there. I've just walked through them all and said, you know what? It's been years since I was even in a mall. There is nothing I need. I've got dishes in my house. I've got clothes to wear. You know, once in a while my shoes wear out and I, you know, get a new pair of runners to keep myself reasonably stable. But I, you know, I go buy a pair of runners, but I don't need stuff. And yet the average person now is exposed to, they are saying, between 6,000 and 10,000 ads a day. And most of them we forget within seconds. But the computers are keeping track, and somewhere in our whatever, we are also keeping track. And I noticed it the other day because one of my problems is that I don't sleep well. And they want to put me on one of these machines that'll breathe for me. And I say, thank you, no thank you, no thank you. I don't want that. But I must have clicked somewhere on an ad for sleep apnea. Because the number of ads I have now received for magic pillows and magic whatever it is, it's simply astounding. And, you know, as I say, I click on to get the daily news to find out what the latest, you know what is. And this is what, I'm one of the things I've done is hopefully I've written a manuscript that I'm hoping will go into another book. And part of one section of it was triggered by seeing a gold toilet, and it was for sale on Christie's. Some of you may have also seen it, and the initial bidding price was $10 million. And I went, what? There are people doing things like this? Does anybody deserve to, defecate into a gold receptacle? And how is that different from the days of Louis XIV, when they used to have Lord of the Royal Chamber Pot, and he would keep track of every elimination and announce it to the public? How is that different from every that is happening right now from a certain gentleman whose every is reported globally? Yeah. So, we have to, those of us with the time, we need to learn from the past so that we never repeat again. And I think the excess materialism that has become part of our life is something we also need to question. And I probably don't even need to say this to a group of Rotarians who are busy raising money in every way they can for those who have nothing. But I think, should somebody be allowed to bid on a $10 million toilet if other people don't have food to feed even their children, let alone themselves? So the world we have created, we have done wonders, but there's so much more that still needs to be done, and we can all become part of that. You've given me a time limit. I have no idea what you want, but I welcome your questions.
I have actually read the book. It's an easy read, and it actually prompted me to do something, because you kept on saying, just do something simple. So we had our grandchildren for a Pro D day and had to do something, and I said, oh, let's go bowling. And I rolled my eyes, and I said, I'll go with you, but I'm not going to bowl. Well, because I read your book, not only did I go with them, I bowled. And I want you to know, except that Sean did better than me. I did better than the grandchildren.
Oh, hey.
And I'm accepting invitations and looking for people. It's just pushing me outside of what my comfort zone was 6 months ago, of doing things that, and I think that's the problem with us, is that we tend to accept our life and just push ourselves. It doesn't, I found, for me anyways, it was not a big thing. It was little things that I've started to do. Like my friend here, who I can't remember how we obviously met through Rotary, but I thought, she's the kind of woman I would want to have coffee with. And we've had a little trouble making coffee, but we've still done it. And even our texts, at least a text is something that I didn't have. So I'm just saying that there are little things in this book that will prompt you to make your life better. And I also walk more than I used to.
Thank you. That's wonderful to know that I've inspired that. And I think that idea of going a little bit beyond our comfort zone is so important, and it ties back to what I said about feel good about yourself. When you feel bad about, oh, I'm old, I'm beyond it, I'm over the hill, I'm whatever, I'm worthless, I'm useless, what the earth can I do? I think this idea of, yes, I can bowl, yes, I can do it, yes, I will try. Oh, what better idea. So thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Byron.
You know, you probably listen to the CBC, you probably listen to Ideas once in a while.
Once in a while.
There was an interview this morning with the guy who was the godfather of Chap, A1 Chap, and what he thought we should do. What do you think about that? What's your opinion?
I'm sorry.
Chat.
ChatGPT.
Artificial
ChatGPT.
AI.
I don't have an answer to it. It's too complicated. That is too big a question for me. I don't begin to understand technology. I've hired a young person who comes to every week and tries to even update my computer and help me with his latest manuscript. She is using chat to help me, because I've got over 150 footnotes, and she's checking every one of them to make sure that I have acknowledged every picture correctly, including like this gold toilet that I just talked about, and that I acknowledge where I got it in the correct format. So it's all beyond me. I don't begin to know how to answer that question. Sorry.
Okay, John has.
Okay, coming up.
I
had it here a minute ago.
Not a question, but more listening to you, I think I will try to save the world in a sense, or go out and do something. Because I got into social work thinking that I can make a change, but I walked away 30 years almost later and said, you can't change it. The hierarchy of any organization, whether it's government or any other leadership, if they don't want things to change, things just don't change.
Well, I tell myself there are two options. One is to be silent and to do nothing, and the other is to try to do something. And I've said, don't be a bystander, just watching bad things happen and letting things get worse and worse and worse. As I said, I have a European background, and people didn't speak up until it was too late to speak up. until it was dangerous to speak up, until there were all kinds of reasons not to speak up and to, be careful. We need to do what we can, and better to try and fail than to do nothing and to pretend, oh, I'll just look the other way. So I try not to.
The last question will be from Dawn.
I'm just gonna say that I just came out Elder Cottage, where we learned, and there's a program on hands-on to artificial intelligence. This is aimed at teaching seniors about how to expect what you're gonna get from artificial intelligence. And then the follow-up one, what if our AI becomes sentient? So in other words, what kind of dangers are we dealing with? But there's lots for seniors to do. There's another group, we had people speaking recently.
May I
about
have
the
this?
top.
Thank
Yes,
you, thank you,
certainly,
thank
yeah.
you. Yes, I have. I keep saying I have stuff to learn. I have stuff to learn. We all have stuff to learn.
We
Yes.
had a lady people talking to us not long ago from TALK, third age learning at Quantlet, where again, lots
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
opportunities for
Yeah.
seniors.
Yeah, and the same thing. They're never too old to learn. And somebody said, "Well, I'm too old to learn whatever it is." And he said, "You know what? You're going to be that age whether you learn or don't. So you might as well start."
Sandy.
In the introduction, it said that you're a Holocaust survivor. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you give us just a quick summary of that?
Quick summary.
Yeah, I mean, that's-
I was.
a difficult thing
Oh
to do,
golly.
but-
I'm not sure you want to go down that road. It's a complicated one and hard for me to be quick about. I was born 1936 in an area that was later, after the Munich Agreement, called the Sudetenland. My parents were not religious, but it's stamped on my birth certificate that I am a Jew. My parents were desperate to get to Canada, but of course Canada didn't want any Jews. Canada had the worst record of any of the democracies for accepting them. And I've just read a statistic now with all the terrible, terrible stuff that's happening in Israel and Gaza, that Americans and most countries, the rise in anti-Semitism has been 200%. You know what it's been in Canada? 620%. What? What is going on? What are we thinking? I thought this was a new world. I thought this was that we welcome difference, that we welcome people from other countries. I just read something actually where it said, so there's some group that was meeting recently, and they said, I would take all people of East Indian descent and drive them into the Pacific and drown them all. And I said, what? This is a group meeting in Canada, and I've forgotten what the statistics were about how many people were part of that group. So awful things are happening. And yes, we have to not just be horrified, but act and speak up. Speak up, speak up, speak up, all of you, in whatever ways you can. Thank you for listening to me.